X4 Foundations is truly one of the best space games I've ever played. From creating your own trading empire in space to being part of massive space battles with carriers, fighters and so much more, fighting back against a rogue AI set on killing every species in the galaxy. Do you love the idea of a fully simulated, living and breathing world where every ship you pass has a crew, cargo and a destination it will fly to? Then you came to the right place. The ultimate game for your spacing needs? No, not that kind. X4 Foundations is one of the more comprehensive spacers out there, and it does this in a truly unique way with not only its economy and the player's role in it, but also its lore, which was built upon decades of work and the passion that's behind it. And I was lucky enough to, let's just say, escort the founder and developer of X4, Bernd Lehan, to talk about its development and its future.
My name is Bernd Lehan. I'm founder of Egosoft. We are a game developer in Germany working on, in the last almost 30 years, exclusively the X game series, a space simulation.
So join me today as we dive headfirst into the deep abyss that is the X universe. Now, before we get to actual gameplay, there's a few things we need to discuss with the X game and what it actually is. In X4 Foundations, today's subject, you are but a single pilot flying around in a parallel galaxy to ours, filled with different species and factions fighting each other after decades of war. And this conflict breeds a lot of opportunities for you to make money, because essentially it all just boils down to this main aspect: money. How do you make it? And what do you do with it? Well, in X4, a huge factor of the game is the economy itself. Every ship, every station that you encounter started its life as a floating rock in space. These will need to be mined, sold to a refinery station, and so on, until it's made into usable material that can then be shipped off to another station or ends up in a wharf to build ships, as ships are one of the biggest drivers of the economy. And why do you ask? Because everyone in this fish tank of a galaxy hates each other. Some are fighting each other, others are fighting themselves. The Terrans over there just keep their entire sand pit. I'm pretty sure they just took a poop in it. The entire galaxy is basically at war, while simultaneously trying to protect itself from the giant threat of this universe, the Xenon. Millions of people and fishes and thousands of ships are lost every day to these floating Terminators. But what are the Xenon, you ask? Well, why don't I let ex-lore expert and fellow YouTuber Lord Dobershift explain that part to you. I hope you brought your space s'mores. It's gonna be an interesting one this time.
Another weary traveler on the hunt for lore within the X universe. Come, sit down by the fire and let me tell you a tale. The Xenon is just a story of humanity. A lesson on why it's so important to pay your software engineers and always make sure your electronics are up to date. You see, Earth had discovered a jump gate that allowed for travel far across the universe, which meant expansion was the natural progression of things. But the majority of the discoverable universe was bare and lifeless, making expansion hard. So Earth created the terraformers, AI-powered bots built with the sole purpose of spreading across the universe and terraforming planets for human expansion. The terraformers did this for many years. But as time went on, their code began to drift, leaving the terraformers' goals to slowly change and lose focus over time. Humanity wasn't blind to this and tried to update and fix these bugs located within the terraformer programming, but this failed. A shutdown command was sent to shut down the terraformers, which did not work, unbeknownst to humanity, who continued on as if everything was honky-dory. Now, imagine humanity's surprise when years later their shut-down terraformers came back and began re-terraforming occupied planets, killing millions if not billions of people living on them. Humanity began attacking the terraformers, and the terraformers, now with a sense of sentience, did not wish to die. This led to a bloody conflict as the terraformers adapted in order to protect themselves. And they adapted so well that they started to easily stomp humanity all the way back to humanity's birthplace, Earth. Humanity, on the brink of total annihilation, executed a plan, sacrificing a fleet of ships that led the terraformer fleet into Earth's jump gate, destroying the jump gate behind them, sealing the human fleet and the terraformers on the other side of the universe, but saving Earth. But this was only the beginning for humanity and the terraformers. You see, much time passed and soon an experimental ship was created that had the ability to jump without jump gates. This was flown by a test pilot named Kyle Brennan. As the ship is being tested by Kyle, it ends up jumping and ending up in another part of the universe amongst a plethora of other species and descendants from the old Earth fleet, the Argon. Kyle learns that the terraformers, which are called the Xenon by the locals, have been thriving and had the ability to repair a jump gate leading to Earth. Kyle, with the help of the Argon and the other factions and species, take on the Xenon and destroy their mothership, saving Earth once more. 20 years later, Kyle Brennan's child, Julian, would set out on a quest to find his missing father, Kyle, and during this time would find himself in the midst of an invasion from an insectoid race known as the Cock. These hive mind Rumbic-obsessed invaders would begin tearing their way through the systems, and it is soon found out by Julian that his father Kyle had been kidnapped by them. Julian is able to muster a force and take out the Cock mother hive ship and save his father, who was on board of it. Unfortunately, though, it seemed the Cock had been messing with Kyle's head, leaving Julian still without his father, who is now in a deep coma. Time passes and life continues for Julian, who is now helping the Argon fleet against the reoccurring Cock attacks and wrangling space terrorists. Julian manages to thwart one of these terrorists, who is a religious fanatic named Ion, who, through a series of events, was using a faction known as the Pyramid to create jump gates for a mysterious ancient individual named Sargon. The Pyramids were mining something known as Nevidian, which was pissing off the Cock due to Nevidium being part of the remnants of the Cock's homeworld, leading to the Cock invasion. And on top of all of this, the Pyramid had decided to betray Ion and Sargon by keeping the Nevidium and the newly created jump gates all for themselves. During this time, Julian's father Kyle would have also woken up and stolen a ship, and then stole a couple of these gates from the Pyramid, one programmed for Earth and another one programmed back, and just noped out back to Earth, leaving Julian to deal with the ongoing Cock attacks. Luckily, Kyle is able to make contact with Earth, who are now known as the Terran, and they come through the jump gate rescuing the day, saving Julian, the Argon, and the other species fighting the Cock. However, this whole situation was a bit too much for the Terrans, who were still incredibly weary of spacefaring races due to their interactions with the Xenon. Due to this, the Terran blockade the jump gate leading to Earth and tell everyone the gate is officially closed for business. Julian and Kyle then part ways, with Kyle deciding to return to Earth with the Terran in hopes to bridge the gap between Terran space and the Argon / the other factions. A Cold War kicks off between the Terran and the other species. The Terran are isolationist and are not happy to see other races relax views on AI and AGI, leading to the Terran to be weary of all the other races and factions out of fear another Xenon-like problem could arise. But friction was too high between the Terran and the other factions, and soon the Cold War becomes hot, with a large-scale conflict breaking out after an influx of Xenon into Terran territory and a terrorist attack on the space ring around Earth, killing thousands of Terran. This time period is fraught with conflict, corporate espionage, and factions trying to use the war to leverage themselves above one another. However, the whole of society comes to a screeching halt with the sudden shutdown of all the jump gates. With the jump gates shut down, whole sectors become isolated. Factions are split into pieces and groups are forced to start fending for themselves with the absence of supply lines and connection to greater economies. This period of time is dark and depressing. Sectors starve to death. Infighting becomes common, and smaller factions such as corporate entities find themselves in a power grab due to the power vacuum left by broken or dying factions taking place. This goes on for a dark 40-year period. The only good thing to come from this is the jump gate shutdown completely halts the war with the Terran. But in the background of all this, the Xenons start to multiply exponentially. With no one harassing them, the Xenon are able to bolster their numbers. So as jump gates slowly start turning back on, the systems attached to Xenon space find themselves struggling for survival against Xenon forces. Likewise, as the jump gates return, it is soon discovered that many factions have changed or been destroyed completely, leaving the universe reshaped and foreign to what many were used to. And as connection to Terran space was established by reopened jump gates, many sat with abated breath, wondering if the war would once more kick off. So Traveler, that is the story of the Xenon, the ever-looming boogeyman of the X universe. A troubling story of humanity's inability to police technology and why it's paramount you always click the update on your Roomba software. Who knows, it one day may be viewing you as lint that simply needs to be vacuumed up as well.
Thank you, Dobor, for that campfire horror story, and if you're interested in a more in-depth look on all the factions of X, he has an entire catalog on his channel linked below, so be sure to check him out and those videos. But let's move on. Each faction also has its own distinct style. The Borons, for example, have ships that mimic aquatic animals like the Barracuda and Mako. The Argon are very industrial, fit-for-purpose type ships, as they are essentially just survivors of a space crash. For contrast, the Terrans, which they are descended from, with their years of isolation, have sleek and advanced-looking ship because they didn't have to deal with the Xenon. The X universe is like full of different races, species, even some ideologies. Where do you get that inspiration for those designs?
I mean, it's really hard to say. It grew over such a long period of time, and honestly, in the very beginning with X Beyond the Frontier, most of those species were already there, but were a lot more cartoonish is the wrong way, but much more simple, in their original design. And then a lot of people contributed over the year to add depth to it, on a lore level, obviously on the visual level, on every level. Especially our author, Helge, who started writing books in this universe. He actually wrote the first novel in the series called Farnham's Legend. And already that added so much lore depth to those races, the species in the universe immediately. And then that also then went back into the games again over the years.
But enough preamble, let's just go into how this game is played and how it feels to play. When you start this game up, I have one recommendation already. Play the tutorial. I can't stress this enough, you will not be able to learn how to fly in one go. It uses your scroll wheel for one if you're not using an actual controller for it. But after those tutorials, you are given a bunch of options to start your game. And personally, unless you want to do anything specific like trading or starting as a different faction, I start the Young Gun, always, because it gives you an Argon ship and tells you to get on with it. At this point, the universe is yours. You can immediately undock and start looking for jobs or ships to take over. Completing jobs will earn you some cash depending on the difficulty and will give you reputation when completed. Harmful actions, like killing the ships or taking them over in a piratey way, will result in negative reputation, and this is just not some meaningless value. With 0, it's just neutral and you can still dock on their stations. Positive reputations give you access to bigger guns, bigger ships, and a lot more cheaper prices. But the negative reputations start with not letting you dock and end with them going after everything you love and own. After getting some money together, you can buy another ship. And what kind of ship it is depends entirely on your playstyle. You can either buy another fighter to escort you on your pirating or hostile missions, a mining ship that will auto-mine the system and sell it off to other stations, so you get a steady stream of credits your way, or maybe you buy a trading ship that will automatically find the best deals in the system and try to make money for you that way. Because every single step in the creation of the ship you just bought is an opportunity for you to make money. There is no free resources for any of the factions. Not even the Xenon get a cheat bonus here. They also need to send out mining ships and gather resources. And again, anywhere along this route is a way for you to make money. Mine the resources, ship them, refine them, steal them, kill anyone else who tries to mine your rock like a Votan. Entire galaxy is yours, and you can make it yours by building your own stations eventually. And speaking of stations, every race and government starts out with a few stations under their control. These are usually located in what's called a sector, with the game only fully simulating and rendering whatever is in the system you are in. Everything else gets put into what's known as outer system simulation. It's done this way because if you try to render a handful of stations in each sector, each with hundreds of ships going around and thousands of drones doing their stuff all the time, you might run into some performance issues and will need a supercomputer at NASA. Every sector is connected to each other with either these jump gates made by the ancients or accelerators made by the current races, as there is no real FTL travel in this game. But after doing a few missions, you might become a little bored, and I was so as well. So usually you'll ask yourself at this point, what's next? Well, there are tons of quests for you to do, ranging from helping a crime syndicate transition into a peaceful trading empire to opening a rift in space to find a long-lost race called the Borons, and usually every DLC they add adds a storyline. A game start for me often goes the same route, where I grind some missions till I have enough money to buy 3 mining vessels and then go off to do the actual quest, while my money keeps magically increasing in the background. By doing it this way, you will naturally stumble across your player HQ and get to research teleportation, which will allow you to teleport between crews, stations, and ships at any time. Eventually, you can build another station. Maybe you just don't want to ship ore to other stations and sell at a lower rate. Maybe you want to mine the ore, sell it to your own station, starting maybe as a humble ore refinery. Your ships will then go out and mine ore, but instead of shipping it to another station, they ship it to yours, where you can turn it into useful materials and then sell it for a higher profit margin. Again, this can also be automated by hiring a manager for that station. With the better the manager is, the further out your ships will mine and trade, and after a while, the Xenon might start attacking you and other stations, inching closer and closer to your fledgling trading hub. So you think, oh well, I should defend myself. So you buy or steal schematics to make your own fighters, amass a giant fleet with carriers, battleships, support ships, and defend the galaxy from the Xenon invasion. And all of this doesn't even dive into how intricate these production lines can be, or the fact that the Terran systems have their own economy with their own resources entirely independent of the rest of the Gate network. But maybe you might ask, okay Lunar, but this sounds cool, but does this have multiplayer? Because I like multiplayer games. Well, it does, kinda. It's not in the way you're used to, unfortunately.
Do you think multiplayer in the most traditional sense of like multiple people in the same world will ever be a viable option for X4 Foundations?
I don't want to say never say no, right? It isn't. I wouldn't say it is completely ruled out, but what we have experimented with in X4, which isn't currently in the game, by the way, we made betas a couple of times, which were online for a while and then be tested, and then currently they are not live. So people don't buy the game for that. It is just a little bonus that we make available occasionally, and then people can try around with it. But that's what we call asynchronous multiplayer. It's actually called ventures. You can send your ships into other player universes where they then basically do missions and come back with rewards. And and you can do this in a cooperative way. You can form teams with other players. And and gain some things that you cannot normally get in your normal universe. So it is a little bit presented like a multiverse, because that's what it is. Because every player on their own PC has their own little universe. That's what you are running on your machine, single player. But multiple players have multiple universes, so we connect them to a multiverse, and you can send back and forth ships and other things to cooperate with each other. And in the lore, this is presented like the multiverse, obviously. So yeah, this fits our game much better. But I would still not say it is totally ruled out forever, that we don't also go a little bit further than just this asynchronous multiplayer. But that's completely future stuff. I don't know.
But I mentioned DLCs, and every Paradox fan right now will have a catonic shock and get flashbacks to Stellaris or Hearts of Iron. But fear not, as we will quickly talk about these DLCs and if you need to get them. Split Vendetta. It introduces the Split, a race of crime-loving and boron-hating humanoids whose ships look cool but fall apart the second you look at them funny. It also extends the amount of system you have in-game, as does all this DLCs in this list, and adds a few new story elements. It's a cool DLC I'd absolutely install if I have the chance. Cradle of Humanity. It adds humanity in the forms of Terrans in the forefront with their unique economy and ships, and of course it adds a bunch of new quests and starting positions. This DLC also offers the most late game content, as when you're done saving or destroying the normal systems, you can move into the better defended Terran space and try to reconquer it from there. Tide of Avarice. One of the more optional ones, in my opinion. It adds 2 new ship types and the ability to scavenge shipwrecks and scrap them for parts and sell those off instead of mining for ore. Personally, I really like the scrapping mechanics. I played a lot with it, but the other systems I really didn't interact that much with until now. Kingdom's End. My personal favorite DLC as it adds back the Borons, my personal favorite faction, alongside their entire ship line of unique organically grown ships. Famously, the entire engine got an upgrade to facilitate this new DLC and the effects this species really needed. They have very fast ships with a lot of defense, with a little lackluster offense, but the entire questline to activate the gates that lock them away from the rest of the galaxy makes this DLC worth its money. Timelines. This DLC is more of an add-on. It adds something called timelines as a reward for the things you do in your sandbox game. It also adds a mysterious storyline about a group of scientists experimenting with the, quote, timelines of the X universe and showing the decades-long build-up of the lore. If you're interested in seeing what made the X universe so shit, I'd pick it up. Hyperion Pack. This is more of a pack than a DLC, and it came out a few days ago, but it adds a cult classic capital ship called the Hyperion, an extremely agile pyramid ship that is ideal for solo explorations into the cold and hard world of X4, and this pack simultaneously adds the least amount of content while also being the cheapest, but it also just adds a big ship, you know, and a sector. It's pretty cool. And now comes the question. Why all these DLCs? Are these just cut content the developers just want to sell back to us to make our games complete? No, it's not. You can play these without these DLC and still have a good time. Plus, the free updates are also still a thing.
Is X4 right now has had a bunch of expansions. Like you mentioned, the updates are free, but the DLCs are paid. You mentioned that you had a vision from the start. Are these DLCs a way of getting to that vision that you wanted to get in at the end?
Don't hang that too high. That there was the vision for or is nowadays. No. The vision, if you can call it that, was always just we make a game, a universe, and that's what we give the player, and he can do in that universe. He or she can do in that universe whatever they like. It's more like the concept of what it is, but how you fill it and what the game exactly is has changed so much over the years, and from X Beyond to what X4 was at the beginning, and then again from when X4 came out to what X4 is now, has changed so much, and that is always true. So we always have such a long list of new features and ideas that we want to add at any one point, that it is never done, it's never finished, and there is not the further you go into the future, the more blurred it gets, but it also, the more shiny and cool it gets.
Alongside these free updates and DLCs, there are also betas. Most of the footage captured for this video is on the beta branch of this game. The beta before Hyperion Pack also introduced the new flight model, which is now in the main game as of the release of Hyperion Pack, on top of a more stunning visual improvements to the engine and boost mechanics, and with a lot of under the hood updates like DLSS support. So yes, these new DLCs will cost you money, but it's not like the devs are just only out there for money. Bernd Lehmann has been developing the X series from 1999 until now. The entire game is made with less than 50 people. It's not like other companies which just release DLC to fix their gameplay issues or just abandon the game when people don't like it. X4 has transformed from an okay entry into the franchise to this vast, multi-layered labor of love that just never stops growing. And during my interview with him, I could hear some of that passion in Bernd's voice.
What does the X franchise mean to you personally, on like a personal level?
It's a very, very cool game that I enjoy. I enjoy the fans that it brought with it, because it's a community, and like it grew into so much more than I was ever expecting. It became my entire career and job, but also a really cool place to be. The team here, as well as the bigger community of people that help us and made all of this possible. So that means a lot to me.
So then, with the game explained, and with all that being said, let us conclude. Is this game worth your money? Well, as any Warhammer fan will tell you, it's not always about how much money it costs, it's about the value you get from it. And if you like fighting massive space battles or managing increasingly complex production lines, this $50 game is for you. You will get hours of content out of it. Myself, I'm at the 300-hour mark. I absolutely love this game. But if you're here because Bethesda's Starfield disappointed you, while yes, you might like the vastly superior space vibes it has, X4 usually doesn't come close to the level of storytelling Bethesda can do. The Boron questline is my personal favorite, but that's also because it's one of the better ones. There are quests from the game's launch which are a lot less fancier, like the Hatikva Trade Federation quests. These cutscenes are rendered in-engine before they knew how to do really cool animations, so it's really jarring to go from the Boron quests to an earlier quest like this, but no other game can make your adrenaline pump by seeing a ship with a singular letter in its name quite as much as this game does. And with the game expanding upon itself until the next installation into the franchise is there, whenever that even comes about, I believe the X4 I reviewed today will be an even better game next year, spearheaded by a man who dedicated much of his adult life towards this passion.
Can I ask a very rude question? How old are you?
I'm now 55.
Isn't the retirement age in Germany 64?
I don't know. I don't retire.
Oh, you don't retire. Okay.
I think it's 65 at the moment. I'm not sure, but no. But I will not retire normally anyway. I mean, as a company owner, and I'm not a normal employee anyway. So, but really, I mean, I have fun doing this, and so I'm fine doing it longer.
Can I just say, as a blue-collar worker myself, this is the first person in Europe I've ever met that doesn't know the retirement age of their country. Madman. But with that being said, give Lord Dobershift a sub. Thank you to the X4 developers for coming on for an interview. And I was Lunar. You are very awesome. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh my god, this recording is looking at 20 minutes. If you like what I do here, please give me a little buck a month on the Patreon. You will get the full access to the interview with Bernd, if it's not a podcast, and all the other interviews I've done with all the other developers. You will also get early access, and if you're a Pebble supporter, you will also get access to a Discord channel here with early access as well. Thank you Dober for coming on to the show. He really got me into the lore of X4 alongside with my dad, who also played this game when it came out, like the X4, X1 it is. He played that for a long time, so this was a real honor interviewing these people. I really can't say how lucky I am to be in a position to interview these people, so I want to thank the people who came on to the show to be interviewed, and I want to thank you, the viewer, because they wouldn't give a shit about me if I didn't have, like, you guys watching me. So thank you. You're the reason I'm able to do this. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.